Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tried Before. This time, Homefront. Yeah, we're back on Deep Space Nine. Homefront. Deep Space Nine. It's all been tracked before. Hey, join us on the Homefront Facebook. Yeah, it doesn't. Does it feel like the home? No, but Homefront. Yeah. Follow us there. It's all been tracked before there, just like we are here. Keep up with what's going on. Get a laugh. Lots of funny stuff. Self-deprecating. That's us. Self-effacing, maybe, or effacing. Can't remember exactly which of those is right, but my dad said it all the time. Anyway. Do that. Follow us out there, and it's a lot of fun. And you'll be like, oh, these guys are already up to Strange New Worlds, but we're not. We're up to Deep Space Nine right now. Homefront. It's all been tracked before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your skeleton crew is here.
This is Steven.
Olivia James, and we are here in person.
Yeah.
For once. Or not for once, but for rarity.
Once again, yeah.
For rarity. To discuss the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, Homefront. What are your first impressions?
This is another jam-packed episode, a lot going on, which, it's funny, we talked in the green room before we went on about, how many notes we take and that kind of stuff, and how Deep Space Nine has hit its stride and all that kind of stuff. And I felt like, then we just watched an episode where I felt like both those things were vindicated in the sense of, I took notes, certainly, but I thought there was just so much going on that I was just into the show, which is fun. And still plenty of nits to pick, yeah.
Yes.
Which is what we do. It's our mandate. But
Sure.
still, very enjoyable episode. And, and of course it was. So, yeah, just a lot to chew here on a number of levels. And just a really good episode involving a lot of our folks. Some of the folks got left back on DS9. Somebody's got to run DS9. But a lot of good developments, some really good and to great character actors, and the return of I'll say Leia Brahms, which is unfair to our actress there,
Susan
Gibney, yeah, who I really liked her here as well, and we'll get into that. But
yeah, this episode, two-parter, obviously, to be continued, looms large in my head because we knew the Founders were quite a threat. We'd seen them blow up a Galaxy-class starship. We'd seen the chaos they're causing by the Klingons breaking the treaty and attacking, even though we did not have confirmation there were changelings involved in that. There were changelings involved in that, spoiler, but also kind of obvious at this point. Yeah. And this episode really hammers home that they have infiltrated far more than you know. That they're halfway through the Book of War and we're still on chapter 1.
Yeah.
And when they say they're already on Earth. Okay, yeah, they blew up 27 people and they replaced Admiral Layton in Starfleet headquarters. You really think that's the only changeling? You really think there's one changeling on Earth?
Right.
There might be, but if there's only one and he can blow up the conference and replace an admiral and shut down the power grid for the entire planet, then you're really screwed if there's two.
Well, and it sets up the paranoia thing, which I found myself doing the same thing as Cisco, and I think is, again, a credit to the series that I was like, okay, everyone's a suspect kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to the point where I was like, we can get deeper into this as far as these security measures feel, we've been living this since 2001, right? Since 9/11, right? These kind of...
Nowhere near the scale, but they're playing on that.
Yeah.
This came out before 9/11.
It did, and it makes you think. It just makes you think about these different measures. Like, all right, and the questions asked, I believe, how much is enough? Well, we don't have enough yet, and I would agree with the people here. They're like, it seems like the shape shifters are truly a threat.
I get that. I also absolutely emphasize with Joseph Sisko's point of this isn't right, and you're taking away my rights.
Yeah.
And this is a fine line because obviously we just went through the COVID where people said, I have the right not to get vaccinated. Right. And that is an individual right. However, for the sake of the community, I felt they should be able to be forced to be vaccinated. Yeah. Whereas I don't necessarily feel like they should be forced to submit to blood tests. I'm kind of on Joseph Sisko's side here, even though I get Ben Sisko's order.
The blood test is quite the thing. And then, and especially now to 2026, just talking about personal information and all that, there's a valid question of, well, what are you going to do? What else are you going to do with that? And, right now the answer would be whatever they want.
Right.
You
need limits, you need oversight, and Starfleet at the moment is asking for no oversight. They're asking for total military control.
We know how that's going right now in 2026.
Not good.
No.
Yeah, I like the give and take. I like the political drama. I love the political drama. My alternate episode, just to put it out there right now, is Sisko stays on Earth in this position, and Odo and Jake stay on Earth, and didn't have to wait long to see Nog again since he left for Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
So we've got if we had Sisko, Odo, Jake, Nog, and add Brock Peters and Susan Gibney as the Earth the Earth story, but still do a station story with Kieran Command and go back and forth.
Interesting.
That would have been. It would have been harder to tell the character-driven stories.
Yeah.
And it would have made the show a lot more complicated to tell.
Yes.
You'd almost need 2 hours instead of 1 hour every week or something.
Right.
But that would have been really cool to then have those multiple locations.
And that was my... How did I put this here? Yeah, I jokingly said, well, this is the end of the show. When they're like, oh, you're going to run security on Earth.
Yeah.
And then I wrote change of scenery. But, I mean, yeah, I guess I could see somebody being like, oh, okay, I guess they're changing the focus of the series. Yeah. Or is this a backdoor spinoff or whatever you want to call it? I feel like now you could do that.
I would love to see a backdoor spinoff.
The current era of Trek, I know whatever, Paramount, Skydance, wherever we are in all those stuff, it's been sold, but I think Star Trek will rise. We'll see more Star Trek, so this podcast will never end, which is why I can never die. But was one reason. But yeah, I thought that was interesting too, because I thought where you just went, I think, is really interesting because I think there's validity in both. Obviously, we've had enough interesting stories on DS9 outside of the changeling things, and then there's all these other storylines you can get into on Earth.
Well, you've got this totally inept president that Admiral Layton says early on he'd be fine during peacetime. He's just not the president for this situation. And we've had presidents like that. Like, people have different skill sets, and being a wartime president is a lot different than being a peacetime president. Yeah. And I really wish... I would love the political spinoff. I'm a big political junkie. And to have the political side of the war happening here while we still also have the action side on Deep Space Nine would be cool. Much to my disappointment, I started doing a little research right at the end of the episode of... Because I remember a certain amount of politics of the Dominion War, but I didn't think they were on screen, and they're not. The president's in this episode and the next one. And then I'm not sure we ever hear mention of the Federation president again. And that really stinks. However, this is the time where the novels really started to take off. They started letting them write next-gen novels to fill in the gaps between movies and stuff. And so in the big, 10-episode next-gen novel series that leads up to the next movie, we get into... not just this president going... He runs for re-election, loses, and we get in and learn about the next president, and there's a whole thing. And then throughout, a dozen novels across Deep Space Nine novels, too, that president goes through a big scandal and ends up getting removed from office. And then there's... when the president after him takes over, a woman, there's a whole novel called Articles of the Federation that is total, West Wing novel with her as the lead, not just her, people in her administration as the lead, set just in Starfleet headquarters, and it's just about the politics. Huh. And I really was upset they only did one novel with those characters instead of a series, but I like that somebody somewhere picked that thread up and developed it out, and we get multiple presidents and administrations and all the different stuff throughout the war and what they do to handle the war. Yeah. It's just not on screen.
I did write down he was not a wartime conciliere.
No.
It definitely echoed Godfather.
Well, his president, Jerish Inyo, played by Herschel Sparber, who does not have a picture on IMDb.
Yeah.
He has 53 credits, best known for Osmosis Jones as additional character voices, a security guard in a Goofy movie, playing a bodyguard in the movie called Brother from 2000, and these 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine. So not like a... well-known actor, not whatever.
Yeah, I thought he did good, voice, though. I thought it was somebody familiar to me, but...
I almost thought it was Michael Dorn. I almost thought it was Worf.
Wow, okay.
I mean, I know it's not, but that would have been cool if Michael Dorn played this part.
Yeah, but it sounded very familiar to me.
That's who I thought it was. I mean, familiar was all over this place because we also had Susan Gibney, who played Commander Erica Bentine, who you know, of course, was recently Leah Brahms.
Yes.
Leah Brahms is a 2-character part. This is also a 2-character part. I like this part better, personally.
I think I did too. I mean, and part of the issue with Leia Brahms is the ickiness
Yes.
surrounding it.
Yes.
I mean, there is, once she finds out, like, what did you do with me?
Yeah.
Then we get to see the strong part. And obviously, Leia Brahms is an engineering expert. So I feel like that almost gets discounted because of all the terrible other things, but not that she was not responsible for. But yeah, and I almost thought, I really liked the character. I almost thought, and this won't be the first time I've been on this podcast, borderline sexist on me, but I was like, I feel like she's like a Vulcan because she's so like, we're doing it by the book.
Yeah.
And her voice was just and maybe she was dropping an octave and be like, I'm not Leia Brahms and da-da-da-da.
Oh, she did not.
Yeah.
I mean, the face is the same, of course.
Right.
But this character does not read like Leia Brahms at all.
No. Like, it took me 2 beats and I was like, oh, yep, I know her. But then I was just like, I'm with you. I thought the character was really good.
Also, same number of credits as the Federation president, though. She only has 54 credits, which is crazy to me because she seems more familiar.
Yeah.
She's best known for Crossing Jordan, 1 episode of Lost, and these Next Gen and Deep Space Nine parts. And after next week's Deep Space Nine, she won't be back on Star Trek again until Lower Decks when she reprised her role of Dr. Brahms.
Wow, that's a bummer.
So she does not have a ton of credits, but I think she's great. I wish she got more. Yeah. I hope Captain or Admiral Benteen shows up in New Trek at some point. That would be wonderful. And other familiar face we had to talk about, of course, Brock Peters.
Yeah.
Who, last time we saw him, was the disgraced president of the Federation, wasn't he? No, he was an admiral. He was an admiral. He wasn't the president.
Admiral.
But he was an admiral that worked with the president. Head of Starfleet, right? Admiral Cartwright. Mm-hmm. Or if not head of Starfleet, certainly up there. But for several movies. And then they give him this role. And, I mean, I love that character for him. I love just... He's best known for, according to this, Star Trek 6, Star Trek 4, Soylent Green from 1973, and To Kill a Mockingbird from 1962. He did do Star Trek video games in the early aughts as different characters, like a Klingon or something, General McCall.
And I think we talked the last time we talked about Brock Peters. He also played the voice of Darth Vader on the NPR Star Wars A New Hope. And I think they did all three, the original. He was really good at that too.
It sure felt like towards the end of this episode that he was a 1-episode character, and that would have broken my heart.
Yeah, and that's one of the things can't this be just as strong an episode if Papa Sisko isn't sick?
Yeah, but I think the point of that, first of all, I think it's a very relatable story.
That's for
of
sure.
Dealing with aging parents
and
when you've got a job and a life to do.
I will hit on that much later when we get to the end of the show as well.
I think the point of that was to stress out Sisko even more and put more pressure on him. I just always am like, and I get it for people in space. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this with the Colleen Doctor, whatever you want to talk about. People who do dangerous things. I know you're a firm believer in this. People who do dangerous things, or just people in TV, period. Yeah. People in life, people die. Yeah.
And so I would have liked it if it was just like, well, you're never around anymore, that kind of aspect as a parent. But I get what you're saying as well. But yeah, I wish it'd just been, I wish it hadn't been, oh, well, he might be about to die.
Well, I think there's also that, and this is it's great character development for Sisko because we're finding out where he came from.
Yeah.
And what a cool way. Casting Brock Peters pays off because, and Carrick Lofton being so good, and Avery Brooks being so good, because the second the three of them get together, you feel the history between them. And Jake's like, oh, he's going to make me chop vegetables again, and all that.
And I like that. I have many thoughts on the restaurant and Brock Peters and all that.
Sure.
But I like that Brock Peters isn't overacting like, I'm a Cajun, I love he's doing that.
Doesn't even do the accent.
No, doesn't do any of that. It's great, and he's just like, and they've set it up originally like, well, if you're there, he's going to have you working, which that's just any kitchen, any guy who runs a kitchen or whatever. But my alternate episode was that he's not sick, and he slings etouffee and justice, so he's also a fighter. Because I love Brock Peters.
Well, I also liked the thing where they set up, you could visit us on the station once in a while. No, I never leave Earth. Because eventually you assume he's going to show up on the station, right?
Right.
Like,
that
feels the setup.
That's where my brain... I love when Sisko's like... Because, then again, I to your point earlier, like, Well, it makes it more relatable. It's like, yep, I related very much to Brock Peters. Reminds me of my mother, and some of the stuff his character Papa Cisco says is like, and that's one of them. It's like, how come you never come here? It's like, how come you never come visit me? That road goes both ways,
right?
And it's a different thing now. But back in the day, 20 when I was Cisco's age, definitely for sure, it was like, that road travels both ways. And he goes, well, I can't, like you were saying, like, I can't leave the restaurant. Well, I can't leave. I got stuff here, so.
Well, after the part 2, which of course he'll be in, he's going to be in all the way into the final season. Okay. So he'll be a not a lot, not often. Okay. I think he's got 6 episodes and none in season 5. So it'll be a while before we see him again. Okay. But he does a couple in season 6 and a couple in season 7. So we'll see him again. I love the part. The other guest star that we had was Robert Foxworth as Admiral Layton, who was Sisko's mentor, again, setting up backstory immediately that they had this history. He's best known for Transformers, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction, and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Oh, wow. Where he voices Ratchet in all of those.
I was going to guess he was the voice.
So, but he's got a lot of other credits, including one episode stint on Boston Legal, which has some Star Trek connections there. He will do 3 episodes on Star Trek Enterprise as a Administrator Valas, which sounds like Vulcan to me. And then as far as other Trek credits, it's just these 2 episodes for Admiral Layton.
I think he has like 102 IMDb, which seems small to me because he was in everything I felt like in 70s, 80s. Yeah. And I when we say 102 credits, some of those are 60 episodes of a TV show or whatever. I just thought he was always a solid, whether a guest or an actor in a series, just always a solid guy. And so I was excited to see him.
Just seeing right now, he was married to Elizabeth Montgomery of Bewitched fame.
Yes. Yeah.
Did not know that. Yeah. And then later was married to Marilyn McCormick, who I don't know who she is. I thought it was Mary McCormick for the actress, but no, it's not. It's somebody else.
Is he still with us? Is Robert Foxworth still with us?
As far as I know, I don't see a death date on IMDb, but I don't see a birth date on IMDb either. So, I see a birth date. I don't see a death date now.
Okay, good.
It does say he's been married to Stacey Thomas since 1998. So that was his 3rd wife. But yeah, Elizabeth Montgomery. That's so much fun. Yeah, he has a ton of guest star credits, primarily, but pretty practical. So let's do this episode from the beginning, because we spent a lot of time talking more broadly. I mean, we're almost 20 minutes in now. So, at the beginning of this story, we find out that the wormhole keeps opening, and nothing seems to be coming through it. What were you thinking about that at that point?
I thought that's what the episode was going to be about. So it was a good bait and switch, if you will. So I thought I just thought that's what we're going to do the whole episode for some reason, even though I knew we were going to Earth.
So I don't remember what the answer is, but my first thought was, well, changelings don't need starships. Like, they can survive in space. Odo was just found floating in space. It could be changelings coming through. Yeah. But then they make the point that I had forgotten about them wiping out the Romulan Cardassian fleet, and they could have gotten cloaking technology from there. And even though they said they didn't detect any hints of ships, we don't know what else they could have developed. Right. So it could be an invasion.
Other things can travel through.
Well, by the end of this episode, that was probably an invasion fleet that we just couldn't detect heading to Earth. Yeah. And now we don't know. They could be here. Yeah. Or is it just a fake out so that you think an invasion fleet's coming to Earth, right? Yeah. Like, it could be a number of things. Whatever it is, I am almost 100% positive, even without remembering how or if that resolves, that this is Dominion messing with them. Whatever it is, I think it's the Dominion messing with them.
That makes sense.
Either actually attacking or just getting them paranoid, right? Because why not? I did like the joke about the prophets might not recognize Sisko with the beard.
I like that, and I like that. That was right. I think right after, or right before the 2 people there, like, took a glance at him, like, because he was talking about the prophet, and so I'm like, well, yeah, you should know about that. And I felt like those people were like, yeah, you know about this. You tell us what's going on. Yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch.
It was nice to have a Dax Sisko scene at the start, because we were going to get so serious and so far away from the station, so to remind us of that relationship. Yeah. So random, this thing that Dax moves all of Odo's furniture 3 to 4 centimeters, though. And that seems a little bit crueler than Dax usually is.
And we never get back to that, do we?
Really. I mean, we saw Odo make her put it all back, and she promised not to do it again while he was gone. But what really struck me about it was, he said she did it this time when he was gone, but he said when she's done it before, she does it while he's regenerating, meaning he's in the quarters in a bucket as liquid and doesn't, like, I guess, asleep. and doesn't even realize she's in there doing it. And I also like that he just knows Quark had to let her in. Like, she's not capable enough to get in on her own, which confuses me as well. I don't know. The whole thing felt a little bit out of character, but it also felt amusing.
Yeah.
The bombing happens at a meeting with Romulans because the Romulans haven't chosen a side and they're trying to get them in for the Federation. 27 people dead, and it's the first terrorist attack on Earth in over 100 years.
Which,
I mean, Star Trek 2009 would beg to differ, right? Into Darkness.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wrote the changelings have reached Earth, which is a big deal, and then, I said, oh, Homefront, I get it now. And then, obviously, we get even more Homefront because the Cisco family and all that stuff. But, so, a seemingly generic title. Also, you could say on the nose, but a good title. A good title overall.
We get the first mention when Ben's on the phone with Joseph of his sister Judith. We may have heard mention of her again before, but the first mention in this episode, because she's mentioned a few times this episode, Judith never does appear on screen.
Oh.
She's just mentioned throughout the series.
That's hilarious.
So we never get to meet her.
So it's like Richie Cunningham's brother. Well, no, he was there.
He was in it. He was in it the first season. Yeah.
George Costanza's sister never does appear. And he's never referenced again after.
Oh, no. I'm pretty sure Judith gets referenced in a number of episodes. We just never see her, which is a TV trope. But it doesn't feel like it at this point that it's like a running gag. It just more feels like more information about the character, and we just never have a story that justifies bringing her on. Do you wish we didn't get the couple of random Deep Space Nine scenes back there and instead got Judith in this episode? Because apparently she's been there with Joseph.
Yeah.
And he sends her away just before Ben comes.
Yeah.
Like, would it... I do feel like, though, that is the expected TV trope of the sister's going to give him crap that she's been taking care of him and shouldering the burden.
Yeah, you're right.
And then she's trying to get him on her side. And so I think at the end of the day, it's probably more interesting she wasn't there doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also feels like there's a hole that she probably should have been there doing that.
I think it's more interesting, especially in light of you saying that we never see her. She just gets her.
Yeah. But we do find out she does not put enough cayenne in the jambalaya. Which, given that I have small children that won't eat spicy, I have tried making jambalaya without cayenne at all and just adding it in my own bowl, and they still won't eat it. So the last time I made jambalaya, which was only last week, I should have made it this week in honor of this episode, I did just go ahead and spice it because I knew they weren't going to eat it anyway.
So
and I made them
they just
else.
don't like it in general?
They don't. I'm guessing because the andouille sausage is spicy.
Okay.
And I can't.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was keeping the other spices out.
I will say this episode made me very hungry.
Also, Grandpa Joe, as they call him a couple times, which makes me think Willy Wonka, and he's not completely dissimilar to that character. Like, he's old and kind of frail, but also more spirited than you might expect. But he talks about how give him a party and a pretty girl, and he'll show you how healthy he is. Although later he makes the comment about there's only 3 reasons to be in bed: if you're tired, you're sick, or if you're dying, or you're having fun with a pretty girl. And I'm too old for the pretty girl. I'm not dying. So I like him. He's cantankerous. I don't know. He's somebody I would get along with in real life, I think.
I do like that he's not... There's a scene where Jake's like, you should sit down. And he actually sits down. It's like, the usual trope or character would just be like, no, I can't, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I like that he was like... And then Jake was like, what are you doing? I'm sitting down. You said to sit down. I thought that was great.
Well, he even says, like, of course I sat down. I'm tired. I don't feel well. I had a mild stroke earlier today. So, I did appreciate that. Like, he can't stop himself from working, but he will sit down with his grandson, who he clearly loves and enjoys having there.
We should all do that well after a mild stroke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we don't all have 24th century medicine.
That's a
he said,
point.
like, most of his organs have been replaced.
He did say that.
Yeah.
I found that relatable as well.
I know it's completely was unnecessary for this episode, but the scene of O'Brien and Bashir in the Flyboy outfits.
I wrote that down too. I enjoyed that very much.
With the heavy accents and the getting ready to throw the glasses, and clearly this has been a thing, and they've smashed glasses before.
I like that they smashed or smushed that into the episode. I just thought it was fun. Continues their whole dynamic.
That's the type of thing, if this hadn't been a two-parter, you wouldn't have had room for.
Right.
So the two-parter gives them a second of breathing space.
Yeah, and at least gives those guys a minute in the episode, or a moment in the episode, I should say. And I thought that was great. And I didn't get too deep into it, but just we should get out of these costumes. Because, I always talk about, like, is the costume with the hologram, or they wore it to the holo suite, or did they wear it to the holo suite? Obviously, those they brought to the holo suite, which is
I think it's a choice.
yeah,
But I think a lot of Starfleet officers we've seen enjoy replicating the outfits,
which makes sense in our modern world or whatever. But also, I mean, talk about relatable. I mean, that's what Star Trek conventions are. It's everyone cosplaying. But we love dressing up.
But we haven't actually seen closets in any of their quarters, and the quarters are small. So my guess is they go back in the replicator when they're done.
That's a good call.
And then have to re-replicate them the next time.
That's a very good call.
So that's unfortunate. I did enjoy Quark being like, no, I understand how you feel being scared for Earth because of all this. Like, yeah, that makes us have less sympathy for you. But to me, I thought O'Brien was a real jerk in this scene in a few ways. I think I can excuse it because he is scared for Earth and all that.
Sure.
But he is... The way he's talking about other species and people, he's coming across as speciest. And the way he treats Quark when Quark's relating to him. Mm-hmm. And look, you can judge him for being obsessed with money. I get that. But if you have the least bit of interest in another person's culture and you know what a key part of that culture is, you should be able to have some empathy for the pain because clearly that was traumatic for Quark. And I felt bad for Quark in that scene, and I thought it was uncalled for that O'Brien was such a jerk.
I think that's fair. Also, this is me picking nits once again, but I've never seen anything rung in at Quark's. So
I've seen him with the tablet before.
I guess he has.
Yeah,
but maybe part of it is some people get deals, and I get these deals at places. But I love that he's talking to. I think he's talking to the two of them. And then he just starts pouring a drink and starts walking over to drop it off to somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, is he going to ring that in? And he didn't. But I did like, it just made me think like, okay. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there's certain, and I will say this happens at bars too, there's certain places that I don't have to necessarily have a tab where other people do.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we know.
Quark's keeping track.
Yeah. Oh, there's no. I mean, he's getting paid.
Nobody's getting a free drink on the tab at Quark's.
That I do not dispute. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, they have credits, and he deals with Gold Press Platinum as well at Quark's. But I'm pretty sure on Earth there's no money at this point, so Joseph Sisko doesn't get paid at his restaurant. And he never saw a bill or a check or anything like that there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's... I mean, from what I understand about Earth in this period of this future history is that he doesn't have to run a restaurant. Nobody's counting on him. He doesn't need the income. And none of the discussions in this episode were about, I have to pay my bills or whatever. No, it's purely like, I want to do this. I love my restaurant. I'm going to keep it running. Yeah. And your sister's not going to take it over. But...
Well, and and...
Nathan clearly is all ready to... Nathan clearly has such a good attitude. Because he even, puts up with the gumbo. Which, I get the impression...
both laughed at that.
I get the impression if Joseph Sisko dropped dead tomorrow, that restaurant wouldn't miss a beat.
Right, yep.
And that's... And even without giving Nathan a line.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, we all want to think the world doesn't go on when we're not there. But get sick for a couple days, everything keeps rolling.
I'm just glad Joseph Sisko has found the Nathan to support him.
Yeah. So,
definitely a character if this had been a spinoff that we could have gotten developed. But
yeah.
I don't think he has any lines of part 2 either, but we'll see. So Odo doesn't come to the restaurant because he's worried a shapeshifter would not be welcome on Earth, so he's hiding at Starfleet headquarters. I get that, but I also feel like of all the places on Earth besides Starfleet headquarters he'd be okay, would be in Sisko's father's restaurant.
Yeah.
Clearly Sisko's father is not prejudiced.
No. I also
he gets 2 grubs for 1 dog. So. Sorry.
Isn't it Odo that says, I don't believe in luck?
Yes.
And I thought he was going to give one of the Dark Knight lines, Two-Face lines, but he says... But it also does create a nice Odo moment where he's like, I don't believe in luck, but I appreciate the sentiment.
I wanted to see him get on the Flyboy planes with O'Brien and Bashir. He'd be so miserable. It would be so fun. I wish that was an episode. I think we've already seen some ridiculous costumes come out of holosuites. We obviously had Dax and Kira and the princess get-ups in the season premiere.
Yeah.
I think that, to my mind, that's always been a running gag on the show is, what are the main characters going to show up wearing this time in Quarks? And so Deep Space Nine doesn't spend all the time in the holodeck that Next Gen or other or Voyager might, but you get that element, and I love that element, that they're constantly wearing weird crap in Quarks. So, and that will not be the last time we see something bizarre. Yeah. Sisko has made hacked acting head of Starfleet Security on Earth. I do feel like even if it's just an acting role, you'd have to replace him on the station at this point.
Right.
And the fact that they don't, and they just keep his job open, is kind of suspect.
Yeah.
It feels like a stretch of credibility, but it's purely because they're not about to move the show to Earth.
Right. Well, it makes sense that they'd be like, well, you know the most about this, and da-da-da, you should be in charge here. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So Nog's a regular at Joseph's restaurant. I can't remember what the name of Joseph's restaurant is. I keep just saying Joseph's restaurant. I'll look it up here. But the live tube grubs, and Joseph doesn't seem disgusted or batting an eye about it. Just like, yeah, maybe I'll like cook them and serve them with sauce. And he's don't cook them.
I mean, they're. I would imagine they're pulling live lobsters out. And...
It's the name of the restaurant is Cisco's.
Yeah, it's not much of a
Cisco's Creole Kitchen.
Yeah,
but still, it's.
I'm sure it's not much of a stretch from there.
Yeah, and tube grubs, when you think about it, don't seem all that far a stretch from some of the seafood they serve in New Orleans.
Nope. And the things I've seen people eat.
You serve the crayfish and stuff. It's not a big leap.
And I don't. It's something I should try, but I never have.
I haven't had crawdads or crayfish. No.
I enjoy lobster, but I don't want to break the lobster up and.
Oh, I've eaten a whole lobster. Yeah, I've cooked a whole lobster and eaten it before.
It's just not my. I enjoy lobster. I enjoy crab, but yeah, I'm a very hands-off carnivore.
Nog's been left out of Red Squad that we've heard about. To me, that just felt like Nick Lacerno's old group, right?
Yeah.
And Sisko's like, there weren't any groups like that. I'm like, really? Because I'm pretty sure, wasn't Picard in like Nova Squad or something?
I was wondering. Yeah, I was like, where are we going with this?
I feel like maybe either Sisko wasn't paying attention because he was never part of it, or if there was no elite groups during his tenure, it was a brief window where there was no elite groups. Starfleet Academy seems like the place there's going to be elite groups.
I mean, I think that's, and if you've watched the recent Starfleet Academy, which I
only one episode, but I loved it.
Yeah, it's a similar. I mean that.
Oh, you better have, because I heard.
Yeah, I had to duck out, so I'll return.
Not anytime soon, thoa
No,
you're gonna wait for the podcast.
It's gonna be many years.
The trick where they bring Odo into the president's office, and he's just like, They give him such crap, even in this episode, about how he can't mimic human form. But he mimics the seagull just fine. Mm-hmm. That suitcase is open. It has so many little things in it. And he's all of those things. Yeah. Like, you can't tell me he's not talented.
It's pretty good.
I think at this point, and this is my personal belief, and I have heard others say this, at this point, the not mimicking a humanoid more correctly is not a lack of ability. It's more of a like, nope, this is how I am now. This is how I've been.
Oh,
I'm not even going to try.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm not even going to try.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I'll just let people keep saying it. I don't care enough to correct them. They start talking at this point about saving paradise. We both already know what the next episode's called. And I assume at this point, because they used to release the episode titles ahead of time, I assume at this point people already had looked in the TV guide for next week and saw what the episode was called. Man, it really hurts every time they talk about saving paradise when you know the next episode coming is called Paradise Lost.
Yeah, and I mean, Paradise Lost is a great, I mean, it goes back to Space Seed and Wrath of Khan, all the Milton stuff, but I feel like that's not what they're talking about here.
Well, so
we'll see.
I think my theory on this, the title anyway, is yes, it could mean an invasion or whatever, but that's not where this episode ends. And to me, this is Joseph Sisko saying Paradise Lost, because people in the streets, blood being tested, those are the things he's against. And same thing with the Federation president, who I don't agree with, because they're the Federation president. He has less right to say these things than Joseph Sisko does. He needs to be thinking more about protecting everybody. Joseph Sisko needs to be more focused on individual rights. That is the proper place for them. Yeah. And at the end of this episode, when we have Starfleet military in the streets with phaser rifles, that to me is Paradise has been lost. Yeah. Because now, whether you're invaded or not, you've given up this peaceful tranquility and feeling of safety.
And they say the thing where they're like, well, we did all this work to make Earth this haven, which to us right now in the 21st century is like, a what now?
Yeah.
Where is this?
I don't know that we're going to make it. I just keep telling myself that in Star Trek history, we made it through World War III and a quarter of the population died, and then we came out the other end, because at this point, I don't know how the United States survives as anything resembling what it was.
Oh,
We've already lost it.
The planet might be okay, but
Does it seem like Cisco regretted helping Nog and doesn't want to help him further? I don't
Yes.
get that attitude.
yeah,
I get the reluctance originally.
Yeah.
When Nog went to him. Nog proved himself. Cisco recommended him.
Yeah.
At this point, yes, you don't want to open the door that Nog counts on you for everything. But at this point, you can do him a favor and do a recommendation. I don't understand why that's a hardship or a thing you're going to grumble about.
yeah. I think it's Cisco. I feel like it got you a thing of these kids these days, and it's like, yeah, that was your Starfleet Academy. This is, and he's not talking about what you think he's talking about. He's talking about, and also, not everyone's experience is going to be the same.
Right.
Also, you're not a Ferengi, and he does kind of glide by that, but. Yeah, and again, Benjamin is juggling many things at this
He
point.
is, but it doesn't feel right. And especially when you have learned now, they clearly just learned that Nog is a regular at Cisco's Creole Kitchen.
Yeah.
You're going to go back to the station soon. You got somebody you know looking out for your dad when your dad's not in good health. You should be butting up to him.
Not only that, he's spending more time with your dad than you
Right.
are, or
If I was Cisco, I'd be like, Nog, buddy.
Yeah.
Can you send me a message every week and let me know how my dad's going?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to help you. Here's how I would also like your help.
Absolutely.
And that would have been a much nicer scene of, first of all, not a quid pro quo because Nog is not that type of Ferengi, thankfully. But a
worst kind.
A scene where they could have bonded where Sisko's like, you know what? I'm glad. I'm sorry for your struggles, but I'm glad I sponsored you and that you've got some type of thriving there. And I appreciate you looking out for my dad. And I'm going to help you. Can you help me? Like, that would have been such a good scene of Nog treated as an adult. Mm-hmm. And we will, I promise, before the end of the series, get scenes of Nog treated as an adult and as a Starfleet officer. We will live long enough to see that. But right now, they're still treating him like the dumb kid and the kid you have to be suspicious of. And I don't like that. I feel like we should be past that.
Yeah. Yeah, and... what was I going to say? Oh, that's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Speaking of... I know it's tough. You know, they only have so many sets they can use and everything. You know, talking about the jambalaya and the different... and the different food there. Is the gumbo, stirring the gumbo and everything. But... nothing else about that restaurant felt New Orleans to me.
No.
The decor just looks like if future New Orleans turns into that, it's just stop.
The booths were the most sterile thing.
Yeah, it's like
the gator hanging from the ceiling was great.
Yeah, it looked like, and I don't say this disparagingly because there are a couple of awesome, and I don't eat these places enough. There are a couple of great New Orleans places in Columbus that serve New Orleans food in like a strip mall or whatever kind of place. Serve great food and still have the character, but this is what I would think they would look like is with that kind of character.
So I think it's a mixed bag. There was a lot of plant and stuff. There were multiple outdoor spaces.
The patio I like.
Both patios.
Yeah.
There were two patios. Yeah. Although the one definitely looked like a patio set we'd seen before.
Yeah.
But there were two patios. It was clearly a larger restaurant than it appeared. Yeah. But you're right, the inside looked crappy.
And I couldn't decide if it was supposed to be a fine dining New Orleans establishment or a place where we should see like 20 people at the bar with hurricanes.
I thought it was a relatively fine dining, but probably with a mix of aging clientele who've been coming there for decades and then some younger people discovering it.
Yeah.
I don't think Nog was out of place because we saw some younger people. Yeah. But I definitely think there's a lot of senior citizen regulars.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
The footage of the horse-drawn carriage on the street. First of all, that might have been real footage from New Orleans, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Second of all, that wasn't a real horse, right? Because they surely wouldn't be doing that to animals in the 24th century. Because we've already talked about the cruelty of it.
Right.
That's got to be like a robot or a holograph or an android or something.
Yeah.
That's my thinking anyway.
Good point.
Admiral Layton hates Odo. I got that impression both times, like when he was regular Layton and he was Changeling Layton. So when he turned into Changeling Layton, I was a little bit surprised, especially when Odo cites the hostility, because I felt like real Layton was also being hostile to Odo.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same type of hostile.
It went up another level, but yeah, and where I was like, wait, what is this deal with this guy? And then when it happened, I was still like, oh no. And I was like, nope, that makes sense.
Where our friend Benteen is kind to Odo and appreciates him.
Yes. Yeah.
Commander Benteen.
Yeah.
Looks like for the next episode she's credited as Captain Benteen, so I sense a promotion in the offing. Yeah. they say Joseph Sisko's arrested, but we never see him in handcuffs. He's allowed to go right back to chopping veggies. So I think it's more of a, like, if we have to leave without taking the blood sample, you're arrested.
Yeah, yes, that's what I thought. I agree.
The scene where he's talking about how wrong this is, very moving. Like I said, I totally agreed with him.
Yeah.
The accidental cut, I loved that. I loved the way they wrote and played that. Both just like, it was so casual when it happened that you're not immediately thinking, oh, now we can see. But Ben looking at the knife and Joseph catching him was so good.
And again, I will say, I was Ben Sisko in that same moment, like, oh, what's going on?
I wasn't.
What's going on right now? And then, then when they turn around, it's like, oh, my bad.
So I think this is what they wanted you to think, and I think I only know I knew he wasn't a changeling, so I wasn't. Yeah, because I've seen it before. And the first time I saw it, I probably would have been more interested. To me, with the knowledge that he wasn't, I was able to focus on, oh, this is a sign of how paranoid Ben's gotten, and not that his paranoia is unjustified, but also confronted with your father, who can see and call you on it. I loved that.
Well, and again, I mean, to their point, like I'm on Papa Sisko's side, but as soon as he was like, "You don't have to take my blood," you know. But we've been trained as Trek viewers of like, as soon as somebody does that, they're up to something. They're probably the bad guy.
Yeah.
But again, that's perfect, and I love a good paranoia thriller, and it starts feeling like a 70s paranoia thriller.
Well, with Leighton already having been exposed, would that have been too much in one episode?
Yeah. Right. That's a good point. Yeah, right.
Also, Joseph goes on this rant that I had thought about, and will turn out to be prescient, of if I was a changeling, I would just go suck all the blood out of somebody and keep it, and I would fool your blood test. And the thing is, we have already witnessed a character, not in this episode, but in a previous episode, we've already witnessed a character have a blood test, and that character, we will find out later, is a changeling at that point and fooled the blood test. So what Joseph Sisko said is already happening. We've already seen it and didn't even know it.
You're right, because he's like, it doesn't matter how many you do.
They can get around this. And he's absolutely right, because you can hide a bit of blood inside your changeling shape and let it out, move it to the spot. So I won't tell you who it is, but yeah, we've already witnessed somebody being blood tested that faked the blood test and survived it. And now I like this level of paranoia set in, because in later episodes and seasons, when they reveal characters we've been watching have been changelings for a while, even like familiar characters that we have seen as not changeling, and then they've been replaced and we don't know it till 6 episodes later.
Yeah.
Like when that stuff happens, it's going to be like, oh yeah, this is all set up. It doesn't feel like a con job down the road because we've already established this as a framework of something that's happening. Yeah. And so one of our main characters will be replaced like at one point, but it'll be like 6-8 episodes later that we find out, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's already a character we've seen blood tested that's already been replaced and we don't know who it is. So it's going to be a reoccurring thing when you're dealing with shapeshifters. And major credit to Deep Space Nine for handling it this way. I think it's handled really well. Mm-hmm. There's that fine line of you don't want to make it hokey, but you need to have that paranoia and suspicion.
Yeah.
So
and maintaining it over episodes makes it difficult, but also at some point then it's just like, well, everyone's a changeling. But right now we're still at the like, anybody could be a changeling is different than what everyone is, so I don't care.
But that's part of why it was so important to this Joseph Sisko story now.
Yes.
Is to tell us, yes, paranoia and suspicion may be justified, doesn't mean you should give into it.
Right.
Because then you lose your way of life. And it's going to get...
What are we...
And as the story moves forward, it's going to be so much harder to keep that at the... There will be times as this war gets darker and darker that you're like, well, we have to be suspicious, we have to be paranoid. And I believe in the heart of Starfleet, the heart of the Federation, the heart of Earth, the heart of Joseph Sisko, of no matter how dark it gets, you can't just give into this. Because if you give that up, even if you win the war, you've already lost the war.
Well, again, we've been fighting that battle in one way or another or one battle after another, if you know. For the last 25 years, or actually for our whole history, the planet, but especially since 9/11, we've been fighting the battle of how much is enough and how much is too much,
Yeah.
and who decides, and
Got to be a balance.
I mean, just the fact that some airports now I can leave my shoes on is it's stupid that's, I shouldn't say it's a big deal, but it's like, wait, I don't have to? Oh, okay. Now, on the other hand, the other problem is this is true first world complaining. Like, I never know if I'm supposed to take my shoes off or not, and the person's yelling at me. But I think most of the TSA people are like, they're yelling at me. I'm like, yeah, because they're trying to talk to 900 people because they're understaffed, which, again, that's another issue altogether. But because I think I'm trying. Oh, the last place I went was Chicago. That was easy. It was a 1 hour flight there, 1 hour flight back. But yeah. I think the last time when I went to Toronto was before that, and so it's a little bit of international.
So we end with Earth losing all power. We've got a state of emergency.
Yeah.
First one in a century, except for the Borg invasion, which you understood what that was referencing, right?
Yeah.
Wolf 359, because they made it almost all the way to Earth.
Yeah.
Wolf 359 was near Earth.
Yeah. Well, they mentioned it's sabotage.
Sabotage, yeah. This episode was written by Iris Daven Bear, who at this point is the showrunner. I think we mentioned that. And Robert Hewitt Wolf, who was executive producer. And directed by David Livingston. So put these in your best possible hands. Let the pros handle it. You got anything else before we get to the rating?
The one thing, and we kind of touched on it, we thought the guy who did the president did pretty good job. The one place I thought he suffered was when his speech about, I didn't really want to be president, blah, blah, blah. I think the speech is written well. I think it's just rushed.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's delivering it fine, but we don't get to feel him thinking through it. And maybe that's the one casualty of all the stuff we crammed in this episode. But, and again, I'm picking nits.
I mean, but if you had a Robert Duvall or even a Michael Dorn under that makeup, it would be delivered with more gravitas.
That's a good point.
I think this was a bad time to choose a completely out of the blue, no-name actor.
Yeah.
You needed to take, like, a regular character actor that guest starred in a bunch of stuff.
I think it works for everything else in the episode except that speech, where you really need it to be like, I mean, we already know he's kind of ineffectual, but I want to feel like he's a good guy. But man, I just So I think that's it.
Okay. Who is your shady character in Homefront? And I know you have some choices.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the shapeshifter that took over the Admiral.
I'm going to put Founder Layton is how I'm going to call it, because we never got a name.
Yep.
And that, and you can argue this, but I'm going to go with President Jaresh Inyo. Because at this point, you got to step up, dude.
One way or the other.
When you're in this situation, like, either step up or resign, because this is too important to have this type of person in the office. And I guess, during the Next Gen era, having a president like this is fine. Having a president like this after this point would be so dumb. And the fact that in the novels he runs for re-election after this anyway, I mean, I'm glad he loses, but the fact that he even has the gall to run for re-election, it's like, dude, you are misreading the room.
The one other thing I just liked when Odo said, I found that when it comes to doing what's best for you, you humanoids have the distressing habit of doing the exact opposite, which I don't think there's a better way to describe humanity than that.
Well, and then doesn't he say the most humanoid? Who does he say is the most humanoid person? Was it Dax? Or was it?
Yes.
Yeah. To me, when he said she's the most humanoid, I immediately flashed back to Kirk at the end of Wrath of Khan.
Me too.
The most human.
He almost even said it, like, he had a hard time saying it,
It's almost like when the original series movies and Next Gen changed it from where no man to where no one.
Yeah.
Human versus humanoid to me. But also, Dax... There are very few people that, if you're going to compare them to Spock, would come out favorably.
Yes.
I think Dax couldn't hang. I'm not saying that we've seen enough of her to reach Spock level, but I don't, if you're going to compare Dax to Spock, I don't go, oh, that's a bad idea.
Right.
Like, they're both science officers. Yeah. But also, Dax is a really interesting character that's gotten a lot of development now.
Yes.
Not as much as she should get, but the development she's got now has been awesome.
Yeah.
So, who's your annoyance to Homefront?
We touched on this earlier, so this isn't a total Papa Cisco is my annoying, but it's the not taking care of yourself aspect of it, and that kind of stuff, which we kind of touched on earlier, which I relate to with having elder parents, or an elder parent, I should say, and just fighting with them constantly about it, and them fighting me back. And it's like, why are we having this fight? You know, and like I talked about why don't you come visit me more? Well, why don't you come visit me? You have nothing to do. So that's, and then he ends up having just a mild stroke. Just a mild stroke. Yeah.
Just a mild.
I know. I wish we were in the 24th century where my parent could do all this stuff and have a mild stroke and just keep on.
Replace their aorta.
I think she'll keep on trucking either way. 24th, 21st, doesn't matter. But
so my explanation of why I chose the president as the shady should have given away that I screwed up and I actually had him as annoying. Because what I just said was more annoying than shady. I also had Founder Leighton as the shady.
So we're together. Okay, that makes sense.
We do have different annoying because I cannot find Joseph Sisko annoying on any level, and I'm fully in his camp on this episode.
Yeah.
For the president.
Yeah.
Who you having a drink with?
I did have our good friend Mr. Brock Peters, but then you mentioned we're going to see him again. So I went with Robert Foxworth because I that's a guy I've always liked as an actor.
So not Leighton, but the actor.
Robert Foxworth. The actor Robert Foxworth.
Yeah. So this is where I had my.
And since he's still with us, Robert Foxworth, hit me up. I got you covered.
So drink is where I put my Joseph Sisko because. Yeah,
that's where I started.
Yeah. Not just Brock Peters, although sure, I would absolutely have a drink with Brock Peters. He's not still with us.
I think Brock Peters is no longer with us.
But I put him here because, first of all, he needs to stop and have a drink and not run around running his kitchen. Yes. But also, I think I agree with him on a lot of stuff, and would like to. First of all, I want to be a regular at his restaurant because the food sounds amazing. Yes, I love Creole and Cajun, both.
I really want some etouffee right now.
Yeah. Brock Peters did pass away in 2005.
Okay.
So over 20 years ago now. But yeah. So I want to have a drink with him, make him slow down, eat his delicious food in his restaurant, have some hurricanes. I'm sure Nathan can mix up some great hurricanes.
He could just be the host out front. He could be the guy going around checking out everybody.
Right.
Enjoy his life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd love that.
I mean, he did definitely seem like he did prep in the kitchen before they opened, but when they were open, he was more on the floor.
Yeah.
I'm sure in his younger days he was more in the kitchen, but you get to know people. Yeah. He definitely felt like, I love and live and breathe this restaurant.
Yes.
And the restaurant is him. That. And I love that. Yeah. That is so good.
That I get.
Anyway, next week we are sticking with Deep Space Nine for part 2. So when I say next week, sometimes that's a mistake. But no, in this case, we're talking about Paradise Lost, which...
Well, we still need to rank episodes, right?
Oh! Yeah, thank you. I'm off of it.
That's okay.
Yeah, Voyager didn't air for a couple weeks here. So the Voyager episode Resistance and the DS9 Army Bashir were the fall finales. Paradise Lost.
Oh, that's right. Because we did a little...
Homefront was a January 1st episode.
Yeah.
And Paradise Lost was January 8th of 96. And then Voyager came back January 15th and 22nd. And then the 29th, they both... So they did. So January was 2 Deep Space Nines by itself, 2 Voyagers by itself, and then end of January, the 29th, they started coming back at the same time, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So yes, ranking the episode. Thank you very much. We got to start near the. I know this is a great season, but I feel like we need to start near the top.
I do too.
Okay, good. Let's go with Starship Down as a starting point. It's not all the way at the top.
I think I'd go above.
Oh, me too? Yeah. I just wanted to start somewhere below the top. Yeah. Above that is The Way of the Warrior.
Ooh, part one.
There's only one. It was 2 hour, but it's just a single episode. Yeah.
Wow.
That episode is definitely more memorable. Mm-hmm. It's definitely more iconic.
Yeah.
This may be recency bias. I kind of want to go above.
That's the Worf debut.
Yeah. Right. And it was great. It was so good. But this had Joseph Sisko. To me, this episode hinges on how much you love Joseph Sisko's first appearance. And to me, it's 100%. Like, I am Joseph Sisko's stan. I wish he was in the show all the time.
I think you could sway me to go with that.
And with the paranoia aspect finally really paying off.
Yeah. I can go with that.
Okay. I mean, I know it's debatable. I know that's I think they're comparable episodes.
We're in a good spot.
And I get why Way of the Warrior is generally regarded higher. But I think, this one has some elements that are amazing. Number 1 right now is The Visitor.
Similar. Oh well, it's Cisco Family.
Cisco Family. Cisco Family episodes are the best. We're getting to the point now, I think you're probably starting to see why Cisco's my favorite captain. Yeah. And all the like pro Cisco stuff I kept saying, and we just didn't get for the first 3 seasons. Yeah. It's finally kicking in. And now we get Cisco or Jake, and yeah, the two of them. I'm going to let you speak first on this one before I weigh in.
That one's... Wow. I think this one has more going on, more pieces, more moving forward. That one hits on a more gut evocative level. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to decide which I like better. You know what? Let's leave Visitor up for now. That's where I'm going to land.
This is number 2?
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I am a sucker for that standalone story that punches you in the gut.
Yeah.
And this episode is fantastic. But other than Joseph Sisko, the rest of it depends on where it fits in the framework of the show and the season as a whole. Yeah. Whereas Visitor, you could almost just completely pull out of the series. And the impact of Sisko dying would not quite have hit as hard if you didn't know Sisko. But Carrick Lofton and Tony Todd's performances, I think would sell that even if you're not a Deep Space Nine fan.
That's a really good point. And and lots of times those episodes don't land that way.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, just before we move on to the next episode.
Sure.
It's always, I think the common thing is part 2s are always, unlike Wrath of Khan, part 2s and the rest of the Trek are like, we got to wrap this up and figure it out. And it's just like, you built so great, you couldn't keep going up. But we'll see.
I will say, I remember part 1 far better than I remember part 2.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe you may be right, but I don't remember part 2
well
well enough.
Out.
Yeah.
We're going to find out
I have not watched part 2 in over 20 years. It's been like 25 years.
I've never seen it.
I know. So I don't remember anything about it, really.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to go into it. I think you're probably right, but I don't think we know.
It's just my hunch.
No. I think it's a great hunch, but we're going to find out next week. For you people, for us, we're going to find out in the next hour. Until then, live long.
And let Nathan handle things. But Nathan, stir the gumbo and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?